Wonderful. Hello. Welcome back, everyone, to our Embracing Equity event for Women's History Month. I am so excited to welcome our next and last speaker, Ola Idowu, the founder of Sisters in Media. So Ola created the organization in hopes of giving young women of color an opportunity to be immersed in media, to network with each other, and to contribute to that very creative environment. Ola was also a global content partnerships manager at Twitter, building and managing relationships with entertainment content providers, top networks, and was one of the organizers of Blackbirds, Twitter's internal employee resource group for Black employees. And on top of that, she was recently named as one of Forbes 30 Under 30, which is incredible. So thank you so much, Ola, for joining us today. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. As you were reading, I was like, I sound cool.
You are cool. I was so thrilled. Ola and I met a couple of weeks ago, and I was just blown away by you and your career. So I'm thrilled to have you as one of our speakers today, and to give everyone here a chance to learn more about you. And so, as we thought about this event in honor of Women's History Month, we really wanted to talk about all of the different ways that women are supporting women. We wanted to call in men and others as allies, and we want to talk about how do we create a more equitable and just workplace. So I thought maybe a good place to start would be to dive into the incredible work you're doing with Sisters in Media. Will you tell us a little bit about the organization and what inspired you to create it?
Yeah, thank you so much, Catherine. I'm excited to be on this call and to have this conversation with you. We did meet a few weeks ago and it was incredible. We had such great chemistry, so I'm happy that the conversation is continuing. So I started Sisters in Media in 2016, and the purpose of the org is to increase the presence of women of color in media. And the way I started is really, one of my first jobs out of college was at NBC Universal, and I remember us hiring and looking for an intern, and we hired an intern, but because the boss had a nephew or relative that really wanted the opportunity, we had to resend the opportunity. And I remember thinking, whoa, the connection that young relative having, to this organization is such a privilege. And that was my opening to understanding nepotism and understanding that it really takes a lot of network. It really takes a lot of connection, not only talent, to get where you want to be. And I was one of the few Black women that was, on the team. And I was so thirsty for a mentor that looked like me. I was so thirsty to just have a stronger community. And it really inspired Sisters in Media. So I was just like, let me just grab my friends at this company, some of my friends from school, and let's just have a brunch. And so we just had a brunch. And it turned into, year after year, something bigger. It was just a brunch where we talked about our experience as Black women in the entertainment and media space. And then after that, we partnered with Syracuse University. Then we partnered with Complex. Then we partnered with Facebook and Bumble Business and Twitter and, the NBA. And it just continued to spiral into something incredible. And that's where we are now. And I'm really honored to be here because I feel like, Catherine, you're doing the work too with Fairygodboss and the Muse. And it is a privilege to be in a space like this. And it is really a privilege to make sure that you're targeting young women, especially young women of color, and making sure that they have an opportunity to amplify their voices and their stories and making sure that they have a seat at the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way you say that, because I think, one of the themes that came up in my earlier conversation today with Anne is how impactful community has the ability to be. I was telling her, for me, in the early days of the Muse, there were so many things that I think if I hadn't had the community around me, I might have thought it was just my fault, or I was the only one facing that obstacle. I was the only one having that challenge. And there was something so powerful about being surrounded by others where I could look at them and be like, you're incredible. And you also have this challenge. Well, it's not just me.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, and you won't know until you force yourself to be around that community. But when you're there and you're looking around and you're like, I think it's just me, you feel alone, you feel siloed, you feel like, you don't have support. And there's some people who, and there's some allies who would love to support and would love to be mentors and would love to help bridge the gap. But if you're not going to open your mouth, they're not going to know. So closed mouths don't get fed. But also, I encourage allies and other like leaders and the industry to kind of like be vocal and also be bold. You see young women in your space and you're noticing that they're kind of alone and they look different. You know that you look different than them. Maybe take a chance and bring up the conversation so that they know that they're seen and that they're heard.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes, sometimes you need to take the first step and offer that, that outreach, especially if, you are starting to have the network or the connections. Being able to open that door for others is such an important part of it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And so as you have been building Sisters in Media and speaking with so many other women about their stories, can you talk a little bit about some of the insights that you've gained from that experience, lessons learned, or frankly, some of the more rewarding experiences that you've been able to facilitate for women within the organization?
I love that question. I'll speak to the rewards. So I was doing this because I have a passion in it. And when you start a business or when you start something, you never really think about the longevity and where it would go and what the future would look like. Well, at least I didn't. I think most people do, but I wasn't thinking how big this could get. And there was one time, so the purpose is we really want women to walk away from these events and partnerships with like tangible resources so that they can grow in their careers, network with the right people, get interviews, get opportunities, get offers. We really want all of that. But there was one event that we did, and it was actually during the sports season. It was like October, so basketball season was starting, and we partnered with the NBA. And all of our speakers were Black women in sports. So some were at the NBA, Bleacher Report, ESPN. Did the event, went well, was awesome. And then a month or two later, I got a message from a member of Sisters in Media, and she told me, hey, just wanted to let you know, I went to your sports event with the NBA and connected with one of the leaders at ESPN, and I'm now accepting an offer at Disney. And I just wanted to let you know I thank you, because if you didn't do that, none of this would have happened. And I got so emotional when I read that message, because that means the world to me. So you're telling me the little thing that we put together led to you really amplifying your career in media, which you've always wanted. And one more thing I want to add is with Sisters in Media, we like to target women who are not really in the space, and looking to make a big transition. I've met women at part of Sisters Media that are nurses. I met women who are in finance and they're really trying to transition, and it's so tough, So it's been a blessing to see that, wow, these transitions are actually happening because of the events that we're doing and then some. But also hearing that this event that we put on led to this woman working at Disney. So it's been rewarding, and that's literally all I've been focused on since then. I really want to have like analytics, data insights, and just proof that we're reaching our numbers and we're making sure that these women are getting opportunities, but also growing within the career ladder.
Absolutely. And so, I think we have a really broad set of people listening in today to this conversation. Everything from executives and leaders who might be thinking about how they could use their position and their experience to help unlock doors for others, all the way to individuals who have joined us today who are in the early stages of their career, who are thinking about, how they make those moves, start to build that community. What advice or perspectives would you have for some of our listeners today about, what they can do to help contribute to a more equitable and inclusive workplace, and kind of create that change that we're all working towards?
I think my biggest advice for the leaders is you have a lot of power in shifting conversations and bringing things to the table. And what you say and how passionate you come to your other partners and leaders with, it really does matter. And it really would make it, like, you can make a change. The little guy, you make a lot of changes at Twitter. And I'm just going to bring up that experience because being one of the leaders for Blackbirds at the time, it was a lot of making sure we knew what we were putting out to the community and making sure that it's relatable and that it's moving culture. And all of those things are great. But if we don't have the supportive leadership, we're not going to get budget, we're not going to get approvals, and processes are just going to be too slow, too long, or just not happen at all. So we have the brain power on the lower level, but our leaders are the ones that determine if this is going to get supported and backed. And so it's really important that the same enthusiasm that, we're coming into these meetings with, you have that too. You say, no, this is important. Yes, maybe there's no revenue behind it, but this is important because we want our company, we want this organization to be tied to this. We want to represent diversity and inclusion. We want to represent ways to build equity in this community because that matters. And that means a lot. And I just want to add one more thing. It says a lot if a company is, and people, because people are a company, are moving this message and moving this message without the, the tragedy of a George Floyd, moving this message without, some big Black History Month moment that's happening. Like, move it in June, move it in August, move it in September. It always matters, throughout the year. So I'm hoping that anyone who's listening, leaders, entry level, everything, all of the above, that you continue to come with it with passion and with purpose, and just don't give up.
Yeah, I love that. And I it's so interesting. I talked to a male leader recently who said, well, I think my team knows that I believe diversity is important, but, and I was like, no, you have to say it, and you have to say it again, and you have to say it again, because you're so right, that vocal and explicit support. And that's true of kind of the CEO, that's true of the board. It's also true of a manager or a hiring manager. I think that it's so important for people to hear us and to hear all of us talking about how important this is, and not just, especially for people in positions of leadership, sort of assuming that your team just knows.
Yeah, I think it's so, it really takes a great leader, a great CEO, a great CMO to bring the conversation up. And also, it's even better when you don't look like me. You're not a woman, you're not Black, or you're not a person of color. And you know that this is an area that you want to tackle, so you bring it up. It's the best when allies stand up and say something, so that it makes the room feel, especially the room that is filled with, people of color, feel a little bit more comfortable. And it feels less like a fight, and it feels more like a collaboration. So it's so important for our leaders to, take ownership. I know that, unfortunately, we've seen tons of layoffs happening, and the first people to go are the D&I folks. And that says a lot. And I think we need to start realizing that, yes, there's not a lot of, revenue in terms of increasing the talent acquisition pool of diverse hires, but this conversation matters. And we need to figure out how we should start prioritizing that. And that's the ugly truth. We need to value it the same way we value these other areas and components, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, that stuff matters as well.
Absolutely. And I've been seeing all of these headlines as there have been more and more layoffs. People saying, oh, the employers have the power again. The employers don't have to kind of listen to their employees as much. And I think that is so patently false, by the way. We heard those same headlines in 2020 when COVID hit. A lot of people were out of work. There was almost this glee from some corners of media or frankly, I think management, saying like, haha, now we don't have to think about and care about creating a respectful, attractive, inclusive environment. And what I just keep reminding people is, fundamentally, individuals are going to gravitate to companies that treat them well, that build inclusive environments, and that care about these things day in and day out, whether it's advantageous to do so or whether they can kind of get away with removing the focus because it's the right thing to do. And I think it's the way that we all need to build companies. And I love the work that you have been doing to, to advocate for that and to help build the next generation of leaders who is going to, come into companies that are probably not always set up well to support them, and help make that change.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I +1 everything you just said. I completely agree. And my hope is that we continue to try to prioritize it and shift the conversation to what actually matters. So I've been really privileged to work on Sisters in Media, and I'm excited to continue to figure out ways we can leverage, Black and Brown women getting more opportunities in this space. So we're working, follow us, and definitely DM me if you have any questions.
Amazing. We got one audience question. I know we only have about 1 minute left, so I'll ask for maybe a kind of short, quick thought. But the question was from Bree Simmers, and it was, what are some good ways to communicate these points? I think these points around building more inclusive workplaces to a room full of leaders. We can bring our passion, but sometimes it isn't heard if we're not communicating information in the way people best receive it, especially if we're presenting change to the way organizations have always operated. For example, needing to support our leaders in bringing more empathy to their leadership. Couldn't agree more with this question. And in our last minute or so, any thoughts on what we asked?
The first thing I can think of is bring proof, things to provide, proof of your data. Like when you give them hard facts, it's hard for them to ignore it. So if you're talking about equity in the Black community and you say, listen, LinkedIn is doing this and their numbers have increased by 10%. Facebook is doing this, and you bring up their competitors and you say that they're doing this math that we are missing and they're growing in the right areas in their field, whether it's through talent, whether it's through retention, they're growing and their numbers are hitting marks that we are missing. This is why we should be doing this. So it's really not about it's the right thing to do. It's really about these numbers. And I think once obviously the more compass is there too, it is the right thing to do. But when you pair that with facts, I think it really does allow leaders to receive the information much better. And that was it in 20 seconds.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. And if someone is excited by what they heard and they want to learn more or follow you, where's the best place for them to go to get more information?
Yes, thank you, Catherine. Please follow Sisters in Media at Sisters in Media on Instagram, on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to us. We have an event that's coming out next month that we would love to invite you to. So just go on our website, www.sistersinmedia.com, and you can subscribe through there. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Ola. That was fantastic. Really appreciate it. And thank you for all of your insights and time.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.